Hi, everybody. We are live. Let's see here. We're just waiting for some of you to log on because we know a lot of you are going to be joining us here on Enlightened Circles. So
Absolutely.
let's make sure that everything is getting running and live and the privacies are going correctly, because that's one thing that happens when we have it starting. Not necessarily does everyone's privacy get set and then you can't see everyone's comments. So we want to make sure that we get to see all of your comments. And I am hearing a lot of feedback. Go ahead and I'm going to introduce and say hello, Miss Pauline. Ms. Magical Conversations here with us this evening. And we're going to have magical conversations right here on Enlightened Circles. So I am going to introduce this beautiful, amazing friend of mine that we met when we were in India at the Women Economic Forum back in 2017, and maintained our beautiful friendship ever since, and always get to check in with each other. And Pauline is such a beautiful, amazing soul. I'm so glad and honored that you're here on Enlightened Circles with us as we make some magical conversations with the rest of you all as well. Welcome to all of you that are here. I see Lisa's already on, but welcome to every single one of you who are here.
Hi.
We are using StreamYard, so please, those of you on Facebook, go to the link that we have provided, give your permissions to be using Facebook, for Facebook to be using your comments, but I'll be pulling up your guys' comments as you join in this magical conversation with both Pauline and I. So Pauline, it's such a pleasure to have you here. If you don't mind, share a little bit of your magical conversations, who you are, and we're going to be talking about gender equality in so many beautiful ways tonight.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. I remember the night that we met in Delhi. It was very, very hot. I seem to remember. It was May of 2017. And we were introduced by a mutual friend who actually didn't make it to the conference we were at, but we had some very, very magical conversations during that week. And I think all of my life, I have enjoyed magical conversations. I like conversations. I love conversations. Maybe that was when I was at school, the teacher would have called me a chatterbox, but it was very intentional conversations. And as I grew up into my career and then motherhood and then into being an entrepreneur, I just found it fascinating to see how conversations would flow or not flow. And the idea of magical conversations came back in the 2007, 8, I think it was, where my daughter said to me, "Oh, you should be called the president of Magical Conversations," which I thought was absolutely delightful, but I thought president was a little bit grand. So I decided to call myself the ambassador of Magical Conversations. But what was fascinating, Jessica, was when I would mention it to people, even serious business people, lawyers and men in high places, they would say, "Oh, that's really fascinating," because they didn't know quite what it was. So there was something a little bit exciting about the magical bit. And anybody who didn't like it, then really they weren't in tune with what was going to happen. Because the thing about magic is that it creates the unbelievable. It makes the unbelievable believable. That's what I say. And it's very important that we flow in this magical conversation, because it's a conversation of several parts. And you can have a conversation with yourself. Of course you can. And we do. But to have a magical conversation in a group, in one-to-one or in a group, then we're attentive to other people and we tune into them. So there's a nature of dancing, which is something I've done all my life. But I think the main thing for me is caring about the other person, listening to the other person, and being aware that we all have amazing creativity and we all have natural gifts. And if we get into this conversation, and it's very simple, it's without judgment, without anger, and without coercion, but it is with passion and enjoyment and love and thrill and sharing our experiences. And out of that, we see the creativity that will create our future. And that's what I'm really passionate about. I've been around a long time in my life, and as you might guess, I'm British, and I'm living in America, and I have lived in Malaysia. So I have had these experiences of magical conversations in different cultures. And as I say, the week that we met, we had amazing magical conversations with a whole group of us who we had never met before. We felt like we'd known each other forever. And that's what's magical.
It truly is. It's a beautiful time to be able to enjoy so many people, have beautiful conversations. And when the biggest thing is what we've discussed in when you're open to communication and you're open to having these beautiful, magical conversations, that's when everything starts to happen. That's when the music, the magic really does happen, right? We
Yes.
have a lot of you out here with us joining. I see like Joshua's on. Thank you. And he's a wonderful host as well. Get to watch his show every now and then. But we're used to having beautiful, magical conversations, but not everyone's always open
No.
to listening, talking, listening, and then as well, like regurgitating, right? So that we are active listeners, active participants. And that's how we really do become having magical conversations. We can actually agree to disagree. It's
Oh,
okay
yes.
to agree to disagree. And we could do things with such respect and such beautiful ways. And that really brought us into the conversation we wanted to have this evening as well, especially when we're talking about gender issues or gender
Yes.
equality. This is not, we do happen to be two women right now on the show this evening, but it's nothing to do about women's rights, men's rights, any of that sorts. It's more about how are we all as humans, where we make this energetic connection, where we
Yes.
allow our energies to connect, our minds to connect, our hearts, our souls, everything to connect in such a beautiful way and a beautiful conversation. And that's what makes it magical. When we can get certain things out of the way, we can have these beautiful gender equality types of conversations that are magical. We can have conversations about religion. We can have conversations about spirituality. We can have conversations about anything in the world and anything that has to do with life. And they can be so beautiful and so magical once we open ourselves to that beautiful communication. So, I know that this is something you deal with, my lovely friend Pauline here as well, Dr. Pauline. We're forgiving that we're not going with the doctors tonight, because otherwise we'll be like, hi, Dr. Pauline. Hi, Dr. Jessica. We're here in a family-friendly conversation with all of you as well. So as we have this magical conversation, Pauline's here, I'm here. Remember, please join in and be a part of this as well with your comments so we can share it with everyone. And let's bring in your heart, your souls, your love, and your energy into this conversation. So Pauline, talking about that, this is something that you work with. This is something you share. This is something you talk with a lot of people globally as well. So
I do, yes. And I think the most important starting point is that it is magical, but it's about valuing differences. Now, differences are where we get into difficulties. So sometimes we think that our view of the world is the only view of the world, and that's really dangerous. But if we value differences, what we find is there are similarities with other people. So, for instance, you and I are both females, but we're very different in many ways. Culturally, I'm from Britain, you're from America, we're from different generations. We've had different experiences. So valuing difference and the fundamental ones between male and female biologically, and also energetically between masculine and feminine energy. I started studying this because I looked at why were people arguing, why were people dissenting about what would seem to be very honorable things that human beings can do together, which is love, respect, and trust each other. But often we think about diversity and we need to value diversity, but we need to value differences. So, for instance, recently somebody said to me, well, we need to get beyond differences. Oh, no, sorry, let's get beyond diversity and beyond differences. I said, no, let's value differences. And this is a very important part of it, is that if I value you and you value me, we can create a we. We can't create the we unless we understand ourselves, and then I understand you and me. So it's a very simple value creation cycle that I use in my work. It says, it's a bit like putting the mask on the aeroplane. I need to not just know myself, I need to value myself, which is different to having values. But then I need to value what's going on in this relationship that we can create a we. So, for instance, when there's a group of women together, or a group of men and women, or a group of men together, or we're in a corporate environment, or we're in a home environment, we're in the supermarket, it's all a different environment. It's going to infect us. Our basic principle of life, which is, do I value myself and value other people, should set us on a track which allows us to flow. And that's the trick with a magical conversation, that when a conversation doesn't flow, and it gets stuck, that's when we feel anxious or depressed or angry, or we feel some emotion that blocks us, and then it's not a magical conversation. Now, not all conversations can be magical, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
But if we attempt to look for that flow, even for very serious situations, then we can produce magic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the main thing is, like you said, we get stuck, and just remember, all of us get stuck.
Oh,
It
yes.
doesn't matter if you're introverted. It doesn't matter if you're extroverted. It doesn't matter if it's a topic
Yes.
you're comfortable with, a topic you're not comfortable with. Everyone, it doesn't matter if this is what you do professionally. We all get stuck in conversation, especially if there's something, like you said, that makes us nervous, throws us off guard, whatever it might be, right? So
Yes.
I've been stuck plenty of times.
Yes.
It's how do we get through that moment of being stuck, especially when you have something very important that's close to your heart, close to your
Yes.
soul to be talking about.
Well, I think one of the things that's important as you get to know yourself is that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fail. It's okay to be wrong. It's how long you stay in the dumps with it that makes a difference. And, I hope that translates in America. But it's like, we're not Superwoman, Superman. We are human beings, and we're allowed to have emotions. And we have times when our physical energy impacts our emotional energy, and our it's one of those days. But the ability to pick yourself up and to know that you are in that moment, and it's you, not the other person. And I always say, and people sometimes don't like this, there's no such thing as a difficult person. It's only a difficult situation. It becomes difficult at the moment where you're not having a good time and you're stuck. And then it's a choice. Can I manage this? Do I want to go forward? Do I want to go around it? Do I want to just move away for a little bit and then come back? Or do I want to face it and maybe get a bit more assertive? I mean, there's lots of things we can do, and we have choices in any moment of that day.
I think it comes back down to a lot of what you're saying, as well as our choices, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that we talk about a lot on Enlightened Circles in different ways, in different formats, because what we're talking about is our Enlightened Circles, our awakening, our emotions, our self, our soul, everything that is. And our choices really do affect the effects that we have in our life. And I think if we were a little bit more conscious of all that while we speak, we're considering speaking, or we're in the middle of a conversation, like even now, we can have different effects.
Yes.
As well with our choices, not just what affects us, but what effects, right? The different effects we're going to have.
Well, that's right. And one of the things is that they always say, can you walk a mile in somebody else's shoes? Can we really understand other people? Well, we can to a certain degree. We'll never know exactly what it's like to be inside their soul and their intention and their mind and heart. But if we value the differences, and this is where my study of men and women comes into play, because I think there is a fabulous divergency between men and women. Let's put it that way. It's like people say, oh, we should be gender neutral. And I'm not talking about sexual orientation at all. I'm just talking about basic stuff. Men and women fundamentally have different operating systems, which is why we have different bodies, different pieces in there. Women are menstrual, we have a womb, we have an ability to create life. Obviously, we have men to help us out, but men do biologically have different. So there's kind of an operating system. It's like having a PC and a Mac. We know they're both computers, and we know they both work in certain ways, and you can run the same programs on them, but they're fundamentally different. And that's the joy of men and women having this baseline difference. And then the energy that we have about our masculine, feminine energy for being, say, for instance, very structured and single-minded, or being very curvy and circular and nurturing. All of these things come into the differences between different types of men and different types of women. So when we come back to that question of like, who's a difficult person? My dream is that with the map I've created, we could walk into any room, any family room or business room, and really honor the differences around the table. Because I often find some people say, oh, but that man or that woman is always difficult. No, they're just being themselves. And the ability for us to really get into their mindset and their shoes, so to speak, will give us an ability to create a magical conversation, even in the most serious boardroom. I believe that.
So let's talk about that. Everyone that's out there, type in your comments. How do you start to get that connection with other people to have those magical conversations? How do you open yourself up? How do you open that door up? How do you open up your energy pathway, right? How do you open up your emotional pathway? How do you open up your soul? And maybe you have some tips for us.
Yes.
How to do that.
Well, let's start with some very simple things. I bet you do, and I do. We like to be honored and valued. So how can you simply honor somebody in a meeting, even somebody you don't know? You can even say, it's really good that you're here today. I mean, just a simple thing like that, as opposed to ignoring them or just saying, oh, well, go and sit over there, be quiet. You know, I mean, sometimes we were told that at school, you know, sit there, be quiet. But actually just honoring somebody and then honoring how they do things. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. You know, for instance, some men are not so interested in conversation, for example, as others. And they may be what I call a more bullet point man in a business meeting. Now, if as a woman, we really want to talk to them about emotions and we think they're being rather stuffy because they don't understand our emotions, we're talking at odds. It's going across two different paths. So maybe by observing, what is this person's core traits? Like you mentioned before, introvert, extrovert, you know, are they quite quiet in the meeting? Are they too serious? Do they make eye contact? So rather than pushing yourself emotionally into them, actually just maybe giving them some kind of compliment. I mean, compliments are very easy to give, and you don't do them in such an ingratiating way that people feel uncomfortable. It's just being really honest, like, hey, you know, you're looking really good. I'm glad you're here today. How are you? You know, how are you? Not necessarily saying how you're feeling, because that might be invasive, but just being aware, as we said at the beginning, just tuning in. So I always smile. I always welcome people. I don't go and hug them when they don't want to be hugged. Of course, we can't hug people at the moment. But do you know what I mean? It's just saying something really simple that will help them feel, oh, I've been noticed. So I'll give you a quick example then. So say we feel that the person who's very unemotional and maybe seeming to be demanding, if we just honor that that's the case, it might say, you know, I really understand your point of view. I think if I summarize it, it would be this, this, and this. Is that right? And we do it in a bullet point way that helps them feel, oh, okay. They will actually open up. So you open up somebody by understanding where they're coming from, not coming from where you're coming from. And then it will flow the other way. Yes?
And I think that's bringing back in, like, Lisa had just put up the question saying, or her comment saying, I'm sorry, Dawn, saying judgment has no place in communication, respect does. And so when you're talking about that,
Yes.
we're bringing in that respect, you know, and it doesn't have, because what you were sharing and what you were saying, a lot of people say, well, how do you do that without being false? And if you have respect for somebody and respect for the conversation you're going to have, then it is no falsities. Your smile is real. The respect is real. Everything is real. You know, Lisa was going along with what you were saying. Know that differences of opinion aren't personal.
No.
And then she was saying, what I mean is don't take it personally.
Well, that's right. And Lisa's got a very good point there, is that when somebody is angry at us or says something that sounds detrimental about ourselves, very often we know psychologically they're actually reflecting something about themselves. So even if we start by remembering that, we can actually potentially help them by subtly getting into that conversation. But really valuing difference is fundamental. I know I'll mention it again and again, but really understanding that similarities and difference sit as a partnership. And when we really see differences, and we have a basic principle of life, which is I'm going to respect everybody, even when maybe I'm in a situation where it's not so magical and I'm feeling that I've been criticized, let me check back first about how that is a choice for me, and then work on a way to come forward into the communication. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to say this real quick. I'm not trying to interrupt. I'm trying to interject because I think it
Yeah.
goes along with what you're energetically, what you're about to say next. I can feel it. Similarities and differences work in a partnership.
Absolutely.
Similarities, everybody, and differences work in a partnership. That's great for everything in life, but please continue
Yeah.
on. But I just wanted to really
Well,
emphasize that.
it is because essentially an argument is about not agreeing, or we're going backwards and forwards. Now, some debates, discussions, very healthy ones, but arguments to me are detrimental. So maybe bringing it back into a discussion mode and then looking at, so what's the value? What values are we coming together? So we have a statement in Corporate Art International, which is bringing knowledge, experience, and imagination together. So we all have knowledge, we know something, we are experts, but our experience of the differences is important. And then using our imagination to really, in a way, be curious, be imaginative about what is it people really are looking for, what is it we really want. So if we stretch ourselves out into the future, which is a passion of mine, is if we create our future together, you and me might agree that we want love, respect, and trust. We want happiness. We want fun. But that will be different for you in your lifetime and different for me in my lifetime, because we are also different ages, different experiences, different things around us. But we still want love, respect, and trust.
Right.
So what we're going to say is that's the similarity. But the difference is that mine, somebody's love, respect, and trust might be also engaging in going to work in another country to help children and teach them. My love, respect, and trust might be running magical conversation, influential communities to make change happen. But our principles are what bring us together when we really understand humanity. And then accepting that, going into any meeting saying, well, wow, everybody is different. This is great. As opposed to, oh, bet they're all going to disagree with me and it's going to be difficult. We set ourselves up for a negative intention.
Right. Okay, you guys, if you guys are liking this, if you guys are feeling this, if this is resonating, I see emojis going on Facebook, the hearts, the thumbs, I see the happy faces. If this is resonating with you all, keep sending those. We love it. But like and share this as well. Like and share this out to other people so they can join this conversation live, because I think this is an amazing conversation, and or your friends or family can watch this later, because we're going to, as we're getting into, I'm going to bring up this comment real quick from Dawn, and then bringing up Rosita's, because it goes along with what you just said. She's a nurse and she's saying, I want to learn as much from my patients as they learn from me. She's a nurse practitioner. And she says, it just requires undivided attention from both sides. Silence from either side speaks volumes. And that goes along with what you're saying. And I think that's re-influencing what you're saying. But also hear from Rosita saying, the problem I have is with someone that is a negative Nelly. It's hard to overcome that energy, tuning in energetically. Because I was asking, remember, I asked all of you out there, how do you tune in energetically? How do you open yourself up to these type of magical conversations? So what do you have to say with Rosita's comment there? And because a lot of us get in a conversation, is it our perspective they're negative, Nelly? Because some people really are negative and we've got to deal with that negativity. But how do we tune in energetically and kind of get over that so we can have a more magical or even non-magical, but understanding conversation with respect?
I think respect is a key issue in here, because if somebody has got a very negative perception of themselves and their world, and that's come from, a lifetime of something that we don't know about. It might be traumas, it might be just somebody's let them down, we don't know what that is. It's our ability to trust and respect ourselves. And this is where trust comes in, is that we need to get to like ourselves. And sometimes that's difficult. And so we can't turn everybody around. We know that classic, we can't change somebody's behavior. We can only influence them to be different. Now, for example, and I'm sure this is very similar with enlightened circles, in a magical conversation circle, where the rule is you come with your experience, not your judgment. You come with your passion, not your anger. And you don't try and force any coercion or decisions. Somebody will always say to me, but what if somebody gets angry? What happens? And I say, well, if you allow it to infiltrate the circle is no longer a magical conversation. Absolutely. But if you manage it, and I've had this happen where somebody's starting to kind of be getting a bit opinionated, you remind them of the rules. And you say in a very calm voice, even if you feel not so calm inside, is that, well, in this conversation, we're not becoming opinionated. We're sharing our experiences. We'd love you to stay, but if you choose to leave, that's fine too. But you have to look at the rules. And then you hold that silence that Lisa said. And I tell you, in all cases, they stay, because actually people want to be there. And I've had situations in an official corporate environment where you've had rather unwilling participants to some magical conversations, and they're sitting there with their arms crossed, not sure what to do. And because they're so used to being told what to do, when you say, well, actually, if you don't contribute, then you don't really get to say anything. So would you like to contribute? And they go, oh, really? And suddenly, and that's another opening, is inviting people with permission to share what their experience is. And we've all, some people say, oh, I don't have a story. Well, I say you had a life. So, we've all got experiences, and people learn how to share their experiences. And remember that value cycle. It's not I as in ego, it's I as in ownership. So, my experience has been this as a mother, as a grandmother, as a businesswoman, as a Brit in America. What do you think? How is your experience? How does it come together? And somebody might say, well, I've never been to Great Britain, so I've never had that experience, but it'd be great to share. So you start by putting yourself into the circle. And it's this difference between I as an ego and I as in ownership. And that for me is a real good starting point, that we have to trust and honor ourselves, and that our story is relevant. If we make sure we don't overload it, we actually listen, we share little bits of it, and we allow it. And it's practice. If we've never been used to a magical conversation before, or sharing our experience, it won't necessarily happen the first time. That's the thing, is everything takes practice. Wouldn't you agree, Jessica?
Yeah, I believe so myself. And I mean, I think as well, everybody, allow yourself to change, allow yourself to adapt, allow yourself to grow as well, because sometimes we're always looking for everyone else's adaptation. We're looking at everyone else's growth in their life. Let's say mom, dad, auntie, uncle, our tios. And so we're looking at everyone else, but we weren't necessarily looking at ourselves, how we might be able to improve conversations. And I always say, let's look back at ourselves. So what adjustments maybe that I don't like in other people's conversations or their styles can I now adjust within myself? So I make it, like you say, more inviting and more welcoming for other people. Because I remember people are like, Jessica, you're such an extrovert and you talk to everyone. You could talk to the wall. I can talk to the wall, everybody. Yes, I am guilty of it. I can sit and talk to the wall, probably by myself. And I love having magical conversations with myself, actually.
Yes.
And it's beautiful to speak out loud in voice, because you're allowing that vibrations through your magical divine voice to actually go out into this world and be received, even just by yourself. But that energy is going out there. So that's a beautiful thing. And you can understand and think, as we have conversations with others now, it's so much more impactful, because now we're not just sending that energy and vibrations, we're receiving. I like to say that as we take breaths in, right? It's that God breath, it's that divine breath, it's that breath of life, however you want to word it for you and whatever terms resonate for you. But as you start to do that in life, as we take this divine breath in, and everyone out there, just take this deep breath and divine breath in. Let's do it one more time. Take a divine breath in, deep breath, positive breath, spiritual breath, whatever you want to call it. But this is the breath of life, right? The only way we speak is by exhaling that breath out.
Absolutely.
That's how we make the vibrations with our vocal cords. You can't speak when you inhale. You can't do it. So when we have a conversation, we're exhaling this divine breath out. And when I choose to speak with malintent, or I choose to speak with negativity, I have now transformed that energy to negative energy, negative conversation, emotional conversation. So these are things I became more aware of as well. And I try to act in my day. So if I think of, wait a second, I'm speaking with a certain way and I want to have this positive life, positive energy, well, then I should probably speak a little bit more positively, even if it's with somebody I disagree with. And,
Yes.
I think Dawn makes a great point as well. She says, as I learned in school, as I'm sure you did, Jessica, there's a difference between empathy
Oh,
and
yes.
sympathy. To not be sucked into a person's negative vortex, you have to learn to control your own emotions.
Yes.
And thank you, Dawn, for sharing that. And thank you for all of you, arigato, everyone. Thank you for being here with us, beautiful Enlightened Circles and families and friends that are all here from around the world. But that's something we really can do, is learn to control our emotions. But one way we can do it as well is controlling what we say or speak, but yet be inviting on how we do it. And I think that's what you're getting into. And I
Yes.
love some of these tips and tools that you're sharing with us all, so we can really adapt them and readapt ourselves as well, not just everyone else. But I love that you say, invite people into the conversation.
Yes, invite them in. And the other thing is to, and I only learned this sort of halfway through my life, and I'm sure you do, is put yourself in your own bubble. It's an invisible bubble. And and maybe you're going into a situation where there's a negative person or some negative. Put that bubble around you. Know that you're consciously aware of your value, not in an ego sense, but in a true sense of being a human being, being who you are, or whatever age you are. And that bubble is amazing and it's magical, because your love can transfer through this sort of lovely gossamer of the bubble, but negativity can't pierce you. And sometimes it's difficult, especially if you're a pioneer and you're going out and speaking differently to maybe people want to hear. If you're a pioneer, you get arrows in your back, but know that you're looking out forward to a vista which you believe in. And that's the thing about trusting in yourself. I was talking to a new friend about trust, and trust is really important, self-trust. And I haven't had it, I haven't had this all my life. I remember when I've always been a fairly happy-go-lucky kind of person, but I would never have got on the stage. I would never have done what I do now. And people would say to me, well, how did you change? And I would say, one day at a time.
Yes.
Because, this is the whole thing about practice. Be your positive self. Know what it is you believe in. Know what it is you want to share, but don't push that on somebody else. Share it in the context of this circle of conversation, the flow, and the dance. The dance. We say dance. I say dance. The dance of life is about the conversation. So watch the conversation sometimes. I always remember when I was a kid, we used to have lots and lots of tea parties, and I was, 10, 12. And we had an uncle who was very much a pontificator. You understand what I mean? It's like when he spoke, it always slowed down the conversation. And I could see my parents going, and I used to think, isn't that fascinating that he's not aware that somehow he slowed the conversation down? And I think that was my early days of understanding the conversational flow and being part of stirring that magical mixture that's in the room.
Yeah. When you talk about the magical bubble, and I always like to say, and you're saying everything stays out, it can't pierce you. Like you said, it can't pierce you. And I say, what does cross, it crosses for our highest lesson and our highest good. So it crosses, but it crosses in a more protected way than it might have pierced us. Like how you say, it doesn't pierce you. Even if an arrow comes through, like you said, you get an arrow to the back, it's not as piercing as it could be. It's coming through for your highest purpose and highest good for us to learn as well. So we can learn how to transform, transmutate, not just energies, but transform our emotions, grow from things and grow better. And talking about growing, Lisa and Rosita was talking about the invitation to magical circle and protective bubble. She loved it. It was great. And Lisa was saying, I love that you said you allow yourself to grow. It reminded me to have grace for myself as I practice having these conversations. I've come a long way, but remembering grace will allow me to relax and be in the moment, even if it's awkward, which I love that she says, even if it's awkward, because a lot of times, even right now, if we're just listening to this conversation, and if any of you guys are out there feeling a little bit awkward, it's not intentional, right? But I know I've listened to conversations as this, and maybe I started to feel awkward, but the awkwardness wasn't, if the awkwardness word is resonating with any of you out there, it's not because you're a bad person or anything else, but we're starting to see things maybe within ourselves that we can change. And whenever I'm awkward, then I say, okay, how do I change this to be more inviting? Your words, inviting, right? To bring
Yes,
it in. And
yes,
that's something as we go into gender issues and equality of gender issues that we were going to have you, because I know you speak a lot about this.
yes.
How do we get over that awkwardness? Because we've all been in such a PR world, PR
Oh,
friendly. You
yes,
don't talk about certain things. You don't talk about gender. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about spirituality. You don't talk about weight. You don't talk about, I mean, if I don't talk about my own weight, how do I acknowledge where I'm at? I'm not saying we have to do things disrespectfully. I don't disrespect myself about my weight. I even say I'm a hefty, voluptuous woman. But I'm happy and okay with who I am within.
yes.
Now I can allow my outside to become healthier. But when we're coming into gender equality and different things, how do we have these conversations without thinking we're getting into that's not PR, we're not supposed to talk about it? So this is something you specialize in. How do we get there? Bring us there.
Well, it is really interesting. And I read recently an article about, I'll give you an example. It's a huge report from McKinsey's, and it's been around for ages, that women were rated as better leaders than men over all categories bar two. And there was like 50 categories. Yet women are not really in charge in the great numbers in the boardroom. So what's this dilemma? And one sentence leapt out at me in the article. It said, stereotypes die slowly. And I thought, so why are the stereotypes there? I mean, there's a lot of history about why stereotypes are there. Why, all men are this, or all women are that, or women shouldn't do this, or men shouldn't do that. And I think we need to get past that and understand the beauty of the differences. So one of the things I think when we look at history, history does inform us that until really the last 30 years, men were very much in charge of business in the world, and they went to work, made the money, women at home. I mean, it was changing more than 30 years ago, but it's still slow, and now it's escalated and it's changed. And we know the world is 50-50 men and women, and there are more women in business, there's more women entrepreneurs, there's more women, but sometimes it's still the all-male boardroom or the fixed. And these fixed things are now being thrown up in the air with the pandemic, which is fascinating, because our economy and our social structures have all been challenged. So if we look at men, and I interviewed over 60 men over the last 2 years, asking them about men and what do you feel about what's happening for men? And they all said, well, we're a bit confused about what women want. So there was this, we're really quite straightforward and simple, and not simple in mind, but sort of, we just want an easy life, and we want to work with women, and we don't want to be overtaken or smothered. So I thought, well, that's really interesting, because men and women working together is where we get the real synergy of feminine and masculine energy, and we get the creativity and the operational stuff coming together. So if we can do that, and we can understand that history has also changed as well as the players around the table. So I designed a map which looks at different types of men, the more masculine-minded man and the more feminine-minded man. And this is nothing to do with sexual orientation. This is just core behavior. And then the women who are sometimes more masculine-minded, like I am, and maybe you are, Jessica, and the others who are more feminine-minded, but we're all females. And we do operate on a circular, multitasking, emotional, intuitive, relationship-based platform. Now, men do make relationships, but they're also very task-focused. They tend not to ask questions the way we ask questions. They don't talk in the same way as we talk. But when we come together, and it is a bit like this, then the synergy is very strong. So the history has changed us. We're now in a world where we have about 5 generations all alive at the same time, because generations are changing so quickly. We have more diversity. We understand the LGBT agenda, which is great. And all my clients in that agenda love the map, because they're all on the map. So I'm a mathematician, and I love geometry and maps. So I thought, I need to create a map. So I thought I'll create a map that we can all sit on, and then we'll have conversations. And that was really where it came from. When I was an image consultant back in the 90s, I started looking at bodies, and I realized that different bodies had different behavior patterns, and the way they stood gave us an indication of who was in the room. And so that was really fascinating. So I started mapping it out, and clients really love it, because once they understand who they are, they can be free of that stereotype. It still needs a lot of conversation, because we've still got the negative Nelly and the negative, whatever the negative man is. we still got the resistance because we're inviting people to change. And change is always challenging for some people. It's not for you and I, and it's not for many of the people who are listening. We love this change. We embrace it. But for many people, it's kind of scary. So it's a gentle approach. But what I find is people love the map because it's a construct that they can embrace. And it doesn't feel like it's imposing on them. It's just saying everybody is somewhere. And if you know who you are, you can know where somebody else is. You can start tracking a conversation a bit like a GPS. So if I'm in the room and I know there's this real, masculine-minded man, he's going to want bullet point summaries. There's the feminine-minded man who's much more intuitive. He's a philosopher. He's like a Nelson Mandela. He's going to talk to me. And then I know there's the feminine-minded female who really wants to nurture what's going on and make sure we're all happy. And I'm there with my magician head going a little bit sort of masculine, but also wanting to be feminine, wanting to be honored. There's all these different nuances going on. But when you get it right, when you're the person in the room who understands and you can assess it by their physicality, which is absolutely magic, you become the master and the mistress of the whole conversation, because people want to feel at ease. So even if they don't know how it happened or they don't know why it happened, they will respond because they're being honored, respected, and building trust with you that you're doing it in a genuine way. And I've run these conversations in many serious places where there has been some resistance to begin with, but the resistance melts because people realize, oh, this is about me. Oh, that's good. And you're not saying, oh, you've got to prove who you are.
Right.
You've just got to be who you are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Lisa's saying for me, those awkward, quote unquote, conversations usually occur at work with people who are above me, quote unquote, if you know what I mean, as well as in public forums where there are officials present, along with Grace. I'll try using the protective bubble. Thanks for that. So, but the reason I brought up her comment is because it goes in with what you're saying. I think that when we're in these positions and in these places, if we can start to identify others, it's not placing a stereotype, it's identifying, we are respecting who they are, we are respecting who we are. Yes. And how we are and how they are. And then therefore, because we have more of an awareness, I like to say when I am more aware of myself, when I am more aware of others, then I can start to tune in a loving, understanding, kind, respectful, energetic, put all those beautiful words back there in there, play in that mixture that creates this ball of magic as we're talking about magical conversations. And we can just like somebody, on the movie Frozen, and at the end when they have the snow or whatever, and they throw it up in the air and it looks so beautiful and we have magic everywhere, right? We can create magical conversations through these better understandings of each other and acknowledgement. But a lot of times we do need to understand ourselves.
Well, we do. And I think the other thing that's important is that getting back to, there isn't such thing as a difficult person. So, fully, oh my God, but this guy up above me or this woman up above me, they're tough and they're difficult. Yeah, it's understanding that these layers, when you get into very hierarchical, they can be. But if you think about it, everybody wants to be loved, I believe. And if I have that writing principle, then sometimes with some people it takes a bit longer. But it's about getting that ripple of energy out there. And I'm glad you mentioned energy, because it's all about energy. It's assessing the energy. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about love in the boardroom. Now, somebody might think, oh, that's sex, but, it's about the energy of pure love and not fear. And if we're in a state of fear, then we're in a state of trying to build ramparts around me. And, there's a lot of understanding that when you're being aggressive, it's actually a very unconfident place, although we don't see it as that. But it's actually, why would you ever be so aggressive that you can't be loved? It's because you have fear. It's understanding these things, and we can't expect everybody to understand this all the time. So go back to the simplest part. And I want to just mention that word grace, because it came up a few times. And grace as in wonderful grace. But you think about the swan, who was, the swan's legs are going like this underneath, but it's gliding along. There's something about being very aware in your bubble about being graceful. You know, in a room, there may even be some arrows going around, but you keep your calm. You keep that space of saying no, you know, even if it's a quiet mantra to yourself. I know my value, and I know my value, and I know my value. And my value is to be here. And even if I'm not getting my point over straight away, then let's work out a way of strategically getting in there.
I love the analogy of the swan. Like you said, paddle, 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 yet it's so gracefully going through. It's just so peacefully, gracefully, at least from the outside, right? So, how do some of you, just like Pauline just mentioned now, I know my value, I know my value, I know my value. How do some of you, when you are in these tight spots, tight situations, you're talking about something that maybe might not make you comfortable, might make you feel a little awkward, how do you remember your value? Let's give each other tips of how we do it, because each one of us do it in different ways. But how do you bring in that I know my values so you maintain that gracefulness through these different types of conversations, especially when talking about something difficult? Because gender equality doesn't even have to just be man, woman. It can be, it comes across in so many different formats. But how do you all maintain your value when you might be in under stressful type of situation?
And I want to just make a comment. When I was doing my research with the men, a lot of the men who were, if you like, gentle guys, one of their greatest problem was being in the room of too many masculine-minded men.
I've seen that before.
You know, they feel actually more comfortable with women. So their nightmare is to be in that, oh yeah, come on, you've got to be masculine. And same for women, you know, that women often misunderstand each other in terms of, you know, we've all got a voice together, but we're different and we have very different views of the world. And some women can be very territorial and some can be very bossy. And, you know, we all have different ways of using our brain. And one of the things I want to suggest to everybody is, in order to understand your value, think about what your natural gift is that you were born with that you didn't learn at school. Now, everybody, I believe, has something. There, you know, there might be a natural musician, a natural athlete. There may be I was definitely a natural sort of designer. You know, when I learned dressmaking with my mum, I just thought, oh, I know how to do this. And it wasn't being bragging. I just thought, put that bit with that bit with that bit. Oh, okay. And I was a natural chatterer, a conversationalist. Some people are natural artists, they're natural singers, they're natural mechanics, they're natural detail people, they're natural, you know, scientists. They ask questions. These are things that we're born with, but we get them taken out of us sometimes at school because people say, oh, no, you've got to learn everything else that you don't really know how to do, but we're going to force you to do that. And the way to find your natural gift is something that you do, that when you do it so well and your friends say, do you know you do that really well? You go, oh, no, that's nothing. Because it's what you do so naturally, you have forgotten that it's your natural gift.
And bring that in. You know, Rosita was saying, powerful, mutual respect and awareness, coming at it in a loving state of mind, standing, swimming in and with grace, assessing the situation. Magical conversations are a dance, and they truly are. They truly are a beautiful dance. And Lisa, you know, we're asking, tell us about your value. I know my value. I know my value. I know my value, with all those beautiful heart emojis, all the different colors, bringing in all the different energy, all the different light energy, all the love. You know, it really is, once we know our value and we know who we are. I think sometimes we can be talking about all these magical conversations about having them with so many other people, but how do we also bring this magical conversation in with ourselves so we can have these real honest conversations and then we really know our values? Yes,
I think one of the things is to really explore, as I've done over my lifetime, and I will continue to, is, you know, what is my take on any of the pernicious issues that are going on in the world? You know, do I have a block on something? You know, why are we arguing about sexual orientation? Why are we arguing about Black Lives Matter? Why are we arguing about politics? We go, okay, what's our stance on it? So if you go back to Well, I love all human beings. I respect all human beings. I want to understand their differences. Doesn't mean I have to agree with everybody, but know what our baseline principle of life is about those things that are causing disruption at the moment in the
Mm.
world. And COVID, I think for me, has come along to stop the world and ask the world and the earth to, and human beings on the earth to reconsider how we live together. And yes, we do want to live, work, love, respect, trust. We want income. We want to be financially free, all the things that we want. But how do we manage it so we're not battling against other people or arguing or being horrible or violent or killing anybody? I know I'm being a very, very big optimist, but I think we can get to the core of what it is we are as human beings and respect each other and allow our natural gifts to shine and make sure that when we come together, we understand the complementary nature as well as being complementary. Is how does it all fit together? I mean, that's why it's always surprises me when families argue, or people who are actually bloodline together or communities. Now, that's not to say we can't have healthy debates. So I'm not saying that it's sort of nirvana and everything is easy. We can still have very much passion, and as you said, we can agree to disagree.
My family's all that.
Yeah.
I was laughing when you said about families arguing, because I remember we had a friend come over, and you're talking about the passion, and you're talking about these healthy arguments and everything else. And a family came there from like a friend came over to our family, and I always joke on here, guys, my family's like my big fat Greek wedding, except it's Hispanic and at the movie, and give them credit all the time for my family. That movie was just made for us. And there was somebody, they were a single child, only child, and they come over and they like leave, and they're like, wow, you guys really like fight a lot and argue. And my sister's like, you call that arguing? That was just healthy, engaged, passion conversation. Because we always, even if we disagree, we agree to disagree, and we still eat dinner the next day. We eat dinner together. We have breakfast the next day, whatever. It's just like, my sister's like, that was just conversation. And so now I'm going to say, that was just a magical conversation with craziness.
Well, that's right. And I mean, if you think about it, I think Jay Shetty says, that the quality of your relationships is the amount of times you can manage the discussion, the argument, if you like. It's like, it can be healthy. It's not healthy if it destroys you, but it can be different. And I mean, in my lifetime, my first husband was different politically to me, but we didn't fall out about it. He came from a different part of England. We had very different values, but you talk about it. I now live in a different country, a different continent to the one I spent most of my life in. And I can tell you, America is not like Great Britain, but I love it here. I love the fact that I can be in this experience, and that I had that experience in Malaysia for 4 years, and that the world is actually full of amazing differences.
It is. Beautiful Svetlana put up beautiful advice. I forgot about my natural gifts. So thank you for reminding her about her natural gifts. But Hector, as we come into this as well, as we're coming, here towards the end, he brought up, and it goes along what we're saying. He says, I know my value, because we kept talking about, I know my value, right? I know my value, but how do we get other people to see it?
Yes.
Especially when you get paid for a service, because this is, I think, a lot of times when we feel a little bit afraid, in a boardroom, maybe we're finally invited in to have a conversation in a boardroom of, okay, everybody, we really want your opinions. No one's being held accountable, because in a boardroom, sometimes you don't really say what you want to say because you're afraid, well, if I say that, I might get fired. If I say this, even though I'm making things look better. But yeah, it's kind of different, more so. Let's say you're a business person or a teacher and you're getting paid for the service you give, or you're an entrepreneur and you're getting paid for your service. How do you get people to see your value for your service?
Well, it's a really good question. And that's where, my passion, why I set up Corporate Heart International, is about cultures. So it's a culture in the workplace, or we could be in a family. But if you think about it, when you're being paid for a job or for a service, where's the integrity about the value? There has to be an integrity. So if you're in a situation in a business where it's really challenging your sense of yourself and your integrity, but you do things you don't want to do because it's still get the paycheck at the end of the week, you have to challenge yourself as to why you're there, because eventually that's going to make you sick. So, I mean, there's a degree of change. You know, a corporate culture is one where people want to be there. They're used for their best values. It's still tough if the times are tough, but they're enthusiastic. They're engaged. They're known for their value, and they get highlighted for their value because they are loyal and enthusiastic and all those things. And there are lots of cultures like that out there. And I mean, I read a lovely story of somebody right at the beginning of COVID where he knew that he had to downsize considerably, and he got his people in 50 or so. And he said, look, I don't want to lose any of you, but if you're willing, let's reduce all our salaries and I will cut mine and we can save this company. And they all said, yes. Now you think about that conversation. That's a man who valued his employees and was willing to put himself on the line. And we know there's stories like this where, you know, the CEO has realized the value of people so that you are paid for what you do, and you have to be full of your own integrity to deliver the service that you are saying that you deliver. And then the business actually makes more money in the end. So it's about engaging with a sense of integrity and not desperation.
Okay, so I'm going to go one little bit further. What if you have the integrity and you're not necessarily desperate? I think what brings us into desperate is that stereotype of money, right? If we don't have this money, we can't pay our bills this week and or this month, and we have a family, we have a husband, a wife, children, whatever it might be, and we've got that integrity, and that's why we're doing our business, because we're doing our business with love, with integrity and honor. But maybe people don't see that. So how do we assist them in seeing our value, especially when we're giving them services, so that they understand why they're paying for something, right? I think that's kind of as well, because I've heard that a lot from a lot of different entrepreneurs and small time people, especially now with COVID-19, because so many people have lost their jobs. So they're trying to do new things and they're not sure how to get there and have that conversation with strength, especially because we feel bad because other people maybe don't have that financial ability as well.
This is a very core actuality about your trust in yourself, because you know, if you are truly authentic and you know that you're on the right path and you're delivering a service that will be valued, then you have to trust that the revenue will come. Now that might sound, you know, it's kind of spooky stuff, but it's true. You know, everything I read about and everything I know is about building relationships. And building relationships take time. And you and I know that you will always get back from the universe what you invited to give you in truth and trust and love and integrity, and have a moral compass for it. And it may take time, but people will come and take your service. And if it's really good and genuine, they will talk to other people about it. That's why it works. And I believe that's going to happen more in the world if we take that stance. Now, it won't be true for everybody, and there are some people fighting the cases out there and being desperate, but I don't think that's the right way, because it's going to make you ill. And in the end of the day, if you're ill, you're not going to make any money, because you're not going to be able to service, and people will pick up your energy. If you're saying, you know, that desperation will come out in what you do. And it comes back to the conversation we had about negative Nelly and, you know, the staying in the victim state and not trusting. I come back to that word trust, and it's a big one now for us in the world at large, you know, and there are millions and millions and millions of people who have to take that decision. And I believe that's what you're doing, I'm doing, and that the rewards come when we trust in ourselves to deliver what we know is our truth. And I think the key is to find the right place to be and the right audience to talk to. So I don't, you know, I don't want to go and work. I work with a crisis management team at the moment, and we're looking for CEOs who want to develop strategies to get through the crisis. So you don't want the CEO goes, well, show me what to do. You want the CEO goes, I want to get through this and I want some help. Great, because he or she has got the energy to change, and that's the client you want.
Right.
You don't want the one that says, oh, well, I'll only pay you if you prove it. Okay, go somewhere else. There's millions of people in the world. It's about being trusting in your ability to be the value that you truly are. and obviously make sure that how you package it and market it and everything, but still understand it's a human to human consideration.
Yeah, it
Even
really
if,
is human to human.
yeah, even if you're selling widgets or, a product, a box or something, but if you're selling a human service or developing other people, then it will still be the same. Loyalty comes at that price of trust.
It does. You're talking about how things start to manifest within, and something we talk a lot on Enlightened Circles, with energy healing, energy work, a lot of my clients, there's a lot of energy blockages, a lot of different things that we have that start to manifest within our body, health reasons,
Yes,
health issues and different things. And we don't really realize that it was those blockages because we weren't knowing that self-value, that self-worth, and that trust. We just were not trusting all that we are, all of our beauty, all of our light, our love, our energy. And so we don't even have these conversations with ourselves. So it's very much more difficult for us to have these conversations with others as well. And then when we can't have the conversations with others, so it's a big spiral that keeps going. And then therefore later that energy just stays trapped within. And it's
yes,
not the kind of dance we want to be doing. We're saying conversations are a dance. It's not the fun dance, right? It's a dance like because you're on like hot coals and you're doing the hot coals to try to dance to get off of them, and you're not dancing because you want to dance. You're not feeling the rhythm, you're not feeling the magic of the conversation. So that's one thing, if we can do today right here, Pauline and I,
yes,
is inspire you guys to do the right kind of dance. Let your life dance, feel your beautiful emotions,
yes,
allow your conversation right here to be so fabulous, to be beautiful, magical. Know yourself, know your heart, know your soul. Trust everything that you all are. Trust what you are. Trust who you are. Trust your
yes,
soul. Trust your enlightened circles right here with us on Enlightened Circles to
absolutely.
have these beautiful, magical conversations. And that therefore we really can go forward with everything. And part of the reason we're even having this conversation, this magical conversation tonight, is because of you guys, because of all
Yes,
of you. Like Rosita saying, I was supposed to be here listening to the two of you. Amazing messengers. Thank you, Rosita. But we're here
thank you,
because of you as
Rosita.
well. And Lisa saying, thank you both so much. We're here because of all of you guys and your enlightened circles, your beautiful hearts, your beautiful souls, and
Yes,
the energy you bring to this platform. And Pauline, you brought a beautiful energy to our platform. You brought a beautiful, magical conversation with your heart, with your soul. You invited us all in. You assisted us in transforming. You assisted us in talking about those heavy things like gender conversations, right? And everything else and everybody else. We will have her back out as well here on Enlightened Circles again. And she will be on our Migrate Your Mindset which is Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern time, Migrate Your Mindset. So don't forget, right here on Enlightened Circles tomorrow as well, you can find us with Migrate Your Mindset. And I will have Aaron Smith, Dr. Aaron Smith, who was on last week with a blank check. He was on our evening show last week. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about how you could utilize STEM to migrate your mindset, right? With science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And we're getting off to an amazing start for tomorrow by having this magical conversation, because
yes,
as we understand how to have these conversations, we can have conversations about education. Right now,
yes.
education with COVID-19 is a scary thing for everybody to do, not to do, where to go, what type of education,
And it needs
everything else.
and it needs to change, and it needs to flow, and it needs to identify natural gifts and be involved with the student, not the teacher.
And Aaron wrote the book, The Blank Check.
Yes.
So it's about, what do you do if you had a blank check to change the educational system, not knowing COVID-19 was coming up? So we can have this conversation tomorrow. Join us on Enlightened Circles on Facebook, YouTube, the different platforms right here at 12 p.m. Eastern. But Pauline, as we're going out here, where does everyone find you? I'm putting up your website as well right now, but missmagicalconversations.com. Is this the best place for everyone to find you? Are you on social media? If they're
Yes.
looking for your map, where do we find this beautiful, amazing map to help us understand others and help ourselves?
Well, I'm on Facebook as Dr. Pauline Crawford Doms and Pauline Crawford Doms. I've got a business page and a personal page, and I'm on LinkedIn, and that's my Magical Conversations website. And I have a book which is called Magical Conversations, which is on Amazon. And I also have a way of sharing the map. If you want to come on my Calendly link, which you'll find on Facebook for sure and everywhere, just contact me and let's have a conversation. And then I will share the map with you and we'll find out who you are and how you connect to other people.
And I just tell you that we had our magical conversations when you were first coming out with all of this at the same time. It was a beautiful time, magical time for both of us, with us in our life and where we were when we met at the Women Economic Forum in India. We were both going to go speak there and had a fabulous time. So if you are getting in contact with Pauline to have a conversation, I do guarantee it'll be delightful. It'll be enjoyable. It will be magical. And obviously, you guys aren't going out and talking to anyone without already having some kind of energy draw, without having a reason to do so. So just remember, when someone's going to come talk to you, they're doing it because they're having an energy draw to you. They're having some reason, some point to come talk to you, to share that energy, to share your soul, to share your enlightened circle, to share a bit of who you are. So when you're in those conversations, bring that forth with love, with light, in such a beautiful, protected way as well. And like Pauline said, and I was sharing with you as well, anything that comes back across that barrier is only coming for your highest good and highest purpose, but it won't pierce you. We can all grow from it. We can all grow together, and we can only be better by really engaging in these beautiful, magical conversations. So you all know where to find me on enlightencircles.com, Enlightened Circles on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. We'd love to have you return, as many of you guys have already been returning. So I want to give you a big thank you. Arigato to my beautiful, amazing friends that were tuning in from Japan as well, and everyone else around the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your beautiful hearts, your beautiful enlightened circles, joining Pauline and myself for being here tonight. We'll see you tomorrow as well on Enlightened Circles at 12 p.m. Eastern time with Migrate Your Mindset, and any other time that's possible. Get a hold of us. Let's have these beautiful conversations. And we send lots of love and light to all and every single one of you so that you have magical conversations every single day. And like Pauline said, changing yourself one day at a time, one moment at a time. Yes. Bye, guys. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you, Pauline. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're always so beautiful and delightful. Love you so much. Thank you.
Love you.